4 newspapers from 4 different countries decided to make a joint effort into reporting the refugee crisis. And these editors are here today. I'm going to pass the microphone, no, I'm not going to pass this thing, he already has a microphone, to funding consultant Karstens to introduce them to you. Applause.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jair, and thank you everybody for staying on. I know it's been a long day, and I hope this session will be worth it. As Jair said, I'm Eric Karstens. I work, among other clients, for the European Journalism Center, and I like to talk about the Journalism Center as we. So, assume that I'm speaking entirely for the organization. A few years ago, we got word from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation that they were willing to spend some money on migration reporting. That's not something they usually do, in fact, because usually they focus on funding journalism that scrutinizes development cooperation. But of course, migration and development are closely connected with each other. But still, it was a bit of a departure. So we were immediately smelling a special project that could be done. The Gates Foundation has been our partner for many years now, and we have funded journalism projects to the tune of several million euros in the meantime. But still, of course, we had to convince the Gates Foundation to actually spend that money, to convert their intention into actual doing. And this is how the project, The New Arrivals, came to life. So we had to give them a few arguments that would fit into their funding rationale, into the mission of the Gates Foundation. And one thing that we suggested is we want to do reporting that goes cross borders. We are the European Journalism Center, so not only the Dutch or the French Journalism Center, and everything we've been doing over the last 26 years, I think it is cross-border European in nature and also worldwide, in fact. Wolfgang Blau has famously said, media in Europe are over-invested in the nation state. So American-based media organizations come to Europe and see Europe as a unit and try to find a place in the European market, whereas many, if not most, of the European media organizations just focus on their own country. It's a bit of a navel-gazing aspect. So we thought, well, let's do something that really combines perspective from various countries in the European Union. Of course, also another thing that is popular not only with the Gates Foundation is the notion of constructive journalism. I mean, we can discuss a long time what this means exactly and how detailed you should follow this concept or not, but they like this concept and we do too in principle. With that goes the idea that one needs to take a long-term approach, that one needs to put a counterbalance to the grind of the daily news cycle, that you need to give people a moment to pause and think about things and learn more deeply about them. That's the other thing that we had in mind. So The New Arrivals is a long-term reporting project. And that's basically the backstory for this project. And Cristina, my colleague who is managing this project on behalf of the European Journalism Center, will give you a bit of more background now.
Hello, good afternoon. So, very briefly, I would like to introduce to you the European Journalism Center for those of you who don't know what we do and who we are. We are actually a Dutch international non-profit organization founded in 1992 and with the headquarters in Maastricht. We are about 20 staff members from 12 countries, and between us we speak about 15 languages. The main motto that could encapsulate the work that we do is that, and we actually take great pride in it, is that we connect journalists with new ideas, skills, and people. And how do we do that? How do we support journalism? Well, basically, we do it through media development. We do it through events. We do it through training programs, and we do it through grants. And I'm going to focus now on the grants work and the grants program that we do. Most of the grant programs that we are currently running, are supported by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. The New Arrivals program is supported by them, and most of them, what they aim is to advance innovative storytelling and reporting on development issues. And now I'm going to concentrate on the New Arrivals. The New Arrivals is a project that is a grant program funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation that was born in December 2016, and is a long-term project joined by 4 main European publishers, Le Monde, The Guardian, Spiegel Online, and El País. And basically the main aim of this project is to report on migration issues through the eyes of let's not put it that way, by following the lives and the endeavors of 4 migrant communities or need groups as they settle across Europe, more specifically in those 4 countries, Spain, France, Germany, and the United Kingdom. The role of the AGC in this project, actually, we do not have an editorial role whatsoever. So basically what we are doing is we are coordinating the project and supporting its management and its implementation. For example, we headed the work of the partners ahead of the launch of the project. It was a joint launch in March 2017. And as of then, basically, we have been coordinated and supported and encouraged the work that they have been doing. And when it was necessary, also, take more of an active role, for instance, in encouraging collaboration, translation. But as I said, we do not have an editorial role at all. So basically what each one of these media outlets are doing is that they have selected or they have chosen a migrant community. In some cases it's a family, in other cases it's a football club, in other cases it's a music band. And what they are doing is, very important as well, is the country of origin of these families that have settled in each of these 4 countries has a particular relevance for the countries in which these media outlets are from. So, for instance, The Guardian is following a 9-year-old Afghan and his dad. They both fled Afghanistan, they fled the Taliban and became separated from the siblings and the mother on the way to the United Kingdom. Spiegel Online is following a Syrian family who is now settled in the northern city of Lüneburg in Germany. Le Monde is covering a group of Sudanese refugees in Vichy, in the city of Vichy, who have formed a music band and are now touring the country. And El País is covering a group of 6 youths from Cameroon, Morocco, Bolivia, and Senegal, who are playing in a football team in the southern, in a southern city in Spain. Of course, in addition to the reporting that revolves mainly this. The migrant families, these media outlets are also recovering on more general issues of migration and refugees. But it is very important to note that this project is not specifically seeking to contribute to day-to-day news coverage. We want to, we rather want to provide background information and background pieces on migration issues that are of relevance to the country where these media outlets are from. And very quickly, I just want to add, the 4 partners, they were selected because basically they had pre-existing collaboration relationships with not just between them but also with Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, because obviously they're all very high quality media outlets, because they have a knack for constructive and substantive reporting on humanitarian and development issues, and because they represent some of the largest EU countries as well. So yeah, I think you would like to listen to them, so I leave the floor to my colleagues now.
Thank you, Cristina, and thank you for the panelists for waiting so patiently. I'll finally introduce you to the audience. Many of you will have met them in the course of the day already. So from the audience's left, that's Mark Rice-Ocley. He's head of special projects at The Guardian. Next to him we have Serge Michel, who used to be the editor-in-chief of Le Monde Afrique and is now building his own news and journalism startup in Switzerland. Next to him we have Eva Thöne from Spiegel Online, where she's the deputy head of the culture department. And last but not least, we have Carlos de Vega, who is a deputy editor at País in Spain. Maybe to get us started, could you, perhaps in your own words, each of you quickly describe the nature of your project, the approach that you took when you tackled it? Perhaps we start with Mark.
Thanks, Eric. Well, I'll be quite quick and say that there were 2 major challenges in getting something like this off the ground. The first, of course, was working with Serge, which I've done for years and years. And the second, as this conference is about storytelling, I think this is very appropriate. When you're trying to find a subject to sort of tell this story of journey and arrival and settling in a country, you're really looking for tension. Every story, I think, has to have tension, has to have drama, has to have jeopardy. And so we were faced with a very difficult choice. Do we pick a settled family who has refugee status and is quite secure and will tell us everything about their lives, and we'll be able to tell that story to our readers, but there won't be any jeopardy? Or do we pick a family where there's huge jeopardy, where they're still asylum seekers, where they've no idea whether they might be deported tomorrow or even worse? And so really the bulk of the work here was in trying to find the subject. We spent months and months traveling up and down Britain, interviewing lots and lots of people. And, well, I like to think, even though I'm getting a bit grayer on top, I like to think I'm still a risk taker. So in the end, we decided on the jeopardy case, the case of a father and son who'd had this horrendous journey to Britain in which they'd lost 7 family members, the mother and 6 siblings, and they were in Britain illegally, and they could have been deported at any time, and still could, actually. And that made for a very challenging relationship between us and the subject. It made for very difficult times when we were weighing up the risk and responsibility of writing about someone, and the act of our journalism and the act of our storytelling might impact on their lives in a detrimental way. But at the same time, I think we found a story that had this kind of, no one knew where it's going to end, and we still don't, and we're still living on tenterhooks. And I won't say any more, but the final chapter in a couple of months, I think, is going to be a real corker.
Thank you. Serge?
Well, as you know, journalism has something to see with reality, but it also has to see with wild dreams. And I think when a woman goes into a school without knowing what's going to happen there, this is part of the dream side of journalism. So in this project, we were daydreamers. We met in Madrid like 2 years ago, and we imagined the project, and we started dreaming of following a story for a family or somebody for a year and a half. You know, we journalists are always accused to be cynical and to do the topic and then ciao and do something else and don't care about what happens later. So there was a dream to follow something and to really be committed, to be good people after all. And also the dream of engaging the subject into the storytelling. We were dreaming of, these refugees, they cross the sea, they almost die, they arrive in Italy, they are half alive and half dead. And what the first thing they do is they dress well, they take a picture of themselves and they send it on Facebook. So the Facebook for these refugees is very important. We were dreaming of having their Facebook accounts somehow integrated into our narration and to have a Facebook for the whole project with all the refugees being friends or part of the thing. And that doesn't work because it is too intrusive for them. And they are still active on Facebook, but we couldn't publish their work. We had to leave it for themselves. And we were dreaming of rethinking what is the news. One of the refugees that it's not on this picture here, but one of them just found a job. Is that a news? And how in a newspaper like Le Monde can we decide this is a new? You see the guy here, the one in red. He found a job after a year and a half in France, and so and so. So is that a news, or is the day's news is like there is a strike in university in Paris, and so can we compete with a kind of traditional news with a story like this? And also, it's of course a dream to work with Mark.
More like a nightmare, yeah?
No, it was a dream. And to work with 3 other fantastic newspapers like The Guardian, the Spiegel, and El País. So, but then after this dream, there is reality, and I will tell you about reality later then.
Thank you. Eva?
Yeah, I think also maybe I want to talk about 2 challenges maybe. I think the one thing is that this was thought as a long-term project, and of course long-term research is somehow always a journalistic dream. You have all the time you want, you can really dig deep and really get to know the people you are following, but it's a completely different thing when you try to not follow them 1.5 years and then publish one piece, but publish something every several weeks. And it's also a question of how much public can a person actually take? It's kind of an ethical question, I'd say. And we also experienced, and I think this was one of our biggest challenges, that for some of our family members, it was too much attention somehow. For example, one of the sons, he's 18, and we chose a very big family because we thought, okay, big family, lots of stories. And one of the sons, he's 18, and when we did our first Snapchat piece about the family, he suddenly got scared because then he noticed other people from his, friends group, they started to talk to him about, wow, I saw a piece about you. And then he suddenly got kind of shy. So it's really also a matter of how to, do this in an ethical way. And also because, in our case, the family, it's not like there was something to win for them. They only could show maybe that they're thankful that Germany took them or accepted them, but that was all their motive. There was nothing in for them to win with, just besides being nice. And the second biggest challenge, maybe we can talk about this later, or maybe that's what you said when you talked about problems, I don't know, is that, of course, it's very difficult. It was a collaboration, international collaboration, but the situation and the refugee politics are very, very different in the different European countries. So it's very hard to, for example, just translate a piece from another country because, the circumstances are completely different, though it's all Europe. And that was, I think, also one of the biggest challenges. We managed to collaborate, but it wasn't as easy as I thought. Yes. So.
Thank you, Eva. We'll certainly come back to the questions you just raised, but first to Carlos.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Cristina. And thank you, my colleagues. They just left me this big Dutch sofa just for myself. So I always wanted to feel important, and this is it. Well, about the project, we wanted to focus a lot about integration, to think that these people who are coming to Europe, in this case to Spain, they are also part of us, or from the first minute. So we were looking for what was the best option to translate this message of integration with the community, with the rest of the community, and we found soccer. Soccer for Spanish people is a passion, and for many Europeans. So we found a team whose members, all of them, are people coming from the north of Africa or the sub-Saharan countries. They arrived to Spain, they are in Andalusia, in a town in Andalusia, and they start playing soccer. And the second part about integration that was interesting for them is that, okay, they play soccer, but the trainer, the community, the league, I mean, the match that they do with other teams are with Spaniards or with people from Andalusia. And they start this relation helping each other. So the players start asking for papers, and they get jobs through the trainer of the team or the family of the trainer or the people who are going to watch the match every weekend. And this is this feeling of really integrating the two communities, the people coming from outside and the Spaniards in that case. I would say two things, advance it about what you said before. It's been great experience to work in a collaborative way from the journalistic point of view for two main things for me, I guess. One is that if you plan these kind of projects, you have to do it with time. And it's difficult to organize everything, but at the same time, you have also more time to produce, to make the report. So it's a luxury really to have 1.5 years to develop a project. And I think that this is because of we are working together. And also the fact that you are working side by side with Spiegel, Le Monde, The Guardian, it makes you feel more responsibility. By your own. It's true that all of us, we have brands behind that we have to follow the high quality product that we do usually, but when you are working together with other media, the responsibility is much higher. You don't want to fail the colleagues from other media, and probably that's the same thing that happened to them. So it increased the quality of the product at the end. I guess that these 2 points it's been very positive, the experience for us.
Just to pick up on one thing that you both mentioned now, how did your reporting in the long term affect the protagonists? Eva, you said it might have been at some point too much attention, so you had to probably think carefully how much you actually cover them. Do Mark and Serge have the same kind of experience?
No, our coverage of the music band was very positive for them because now everybody calls them to play at their place. So they even cannot accept every invitation. So I think, and another one got a job, another one got accepted in a school. I think we are only so positive outcome of the coverage on the people we follow. But I don't want to make a short story long, but this group of people, the 9 musicians, is the 3rd or 4th family, the kind of family group that we found. We started with a perfect family of 4 from Cameroon crossing the sea, and we had a correspondent who had seen them by chance in Algeria before they crossed the sea. Then we had a correspondent on a boat that saved them inside the middle of the sea. And then we had a correspondent in Italy, a 3rd one, meeting them in Italy. And they came to France, but the same day they just crossed the border to Germany because they thought it's better in Germany. So we were ready to follow them and the last day they just escaped. So then we found a 2nd family, and they were people from South Sudan located in Israel, and they were on the verge to be expelled from Israel by the Israelis because Israel is not very welcoming for Africans. There were 9 people. They had a dramatic story behind. And among the 9 people, there was a lady who was the champion of heptathlon in Israel. She was an athlete. So it was a fantastic story. They were supposed to come to France. There was a village waiting for them, and we were ready to do that story when the project started on March 1st last year. But at the very last moment, they decided not to come to France because they saw the village. We organized a Skype call between the village and them in Tel Aviv, and then they said it's better in Tel Aviv because there is more. The village was really remote. I mean, in France, and they just said, "Okay, we are better here." And then we then desperately we found another guy in Lyon. He was from Eritrea. We followed him for 2 or 3 weeks, and then he just said, "I've enough. Please leave me alone." So. And that's after all this, we found a group of musicians. So it's very positive for them, but for us it was hard because we took some risk, like you said, but we paid a good price for the risk.
Yeah.
From my point of view, the impact has been amazing. When you publish something like this on the first day, lots of things happen. Most of them in your inbox. You get contacted by so many people who wanted to help Saeed Nourzai and his 9-year-old boy, and that was really uplifting. And I think that made life for them in the UK, I won't say easy, less hard. And then other things happened with NGOs who got in touch saying, we've got a case here that we've been talking about that's complete miscarriage of justice. So we spread our focus through the months, and we covered other cases, and on 3 occasions the Home Office turned around and granted leave to remain within 48 hours of us writing about the predicament of a certain asylum seeker who'd been living in total limbo for years and years. And when that happens, you can't help but think, well, this was worth doing.
Yeah, real humanitarian impact, if you will.
I would say one thing that's journalism is not, newspapers are not just writing stories. And this is great in that case, for this soccer team. We did with them video reports, native video content for social media. So what happened is that, they didn't become celebrities, but probably a writing story was going to be very good for the newspaper and for the readers of the traditional newspaper, but going on video in that case has been immediately watched by their families in their countries, the local communities. There was the local TV station in Jerez, that's the place that they live, that they asked us for distributing the video report that we did with them. So instantly, they felt the effect of being the stars of a story that's evolving. And that's great because of the variety of formats that we have now to tell the story in journalism.
That impact back home that you speak of is also a danger, particularly with Afghanistan, because you never quite know what extended family is back at home in Kabul or Kunduz province. And of course, it's a globalized world now. Anything you publish can be seen anywhere. And so I found it like treading on eggshells the whole time, weighing up, what's the risk of doing this? What's the chances that, we hear that an uncle has been killed in Kabul because he can see that these people who've defied the Taliban have fled to the West. So it's a double-edged sword.
We'll have the opportunity for audience questions in a minute, so get ready, please. But all of you also mentioned the international collaboration, and that is one thing that obviously sets this project apart from others. But of course, you are primarily obliged to your own audiences. You have specific media landscapes and cultures, to think of. How did that work in practice? How did you manage to carry some content from your partners over into your respective media outlets?
You can use that.
Well, if only because my experiences were very good. There was some fantastic. What you get when you translate, and I never really translate. It's more about transediting, because a translation simply doesn't work. But when you have really great journalism from Spain and France and Germany, you get something so much richer and three-dimensional. Not to say our own correspondents aren't great, but a foreign correspondent has a certain way of reporting a country, confirming people's prejudices normally, and drawing on the same perhaps 20, 50 sources that they have built up over the years. But think about the sources that Le Monde have, and Spiegel and País, the thousands and thousands of people. They know their country so richly. So we didn't translate a huge amount, but when we did, we found we got these stories that were unlike anything we'd ever published before.
Yeah. I think it's the biggest challenge, and also what worked was if you could find somehow an angle or a connection that also German readers could relate to somehow. For example, we translated this one piece I remember from Spain. It was about migrants who are now living in remote areas in Spain, but they are like reviving deserted areas. And this is like an issue, this kind of like villages where less and less people live and more people moving to the big cities. We all know that. This is something that also happens in Germany. So this was actually a piece where we modified it a bit, but still it was something that I know our audience could relate to. And we also got, I mean, it was read quite a lot, and it was commented in a very good way. So I think this is like somehow the biggest challenge, and because of course, like you said, we always have a foreign correspondent always has a completely different view, like an outsider view, and it's a completely different framing somehow. Yeah.
We translated the same piece about the remote village where I think it was from Morocco, a refugee, and it had a very good result. I mean, in terms of audience and metrics on our site, and we also did together. Well, you did more than we did, but the piece about 2018, 18 stories of refugees, so 18 profiles of refugees all around, and that was, I think, the best audience we had, yeah, for the whole project till this year. Last year we had some more. But so, no, translating is not very difficult, especially if you can edit a bit, but it's yeah.
And one other thing to say, we also, at the beginning, we worked together in an investigative fashion to try, as you said earlier, try and find out what's different about these countries, you know, because Germany had this kind of welcoming culture, Britain completely the opposite, and France and Spain have their own dynamic. So we did something quite unique in sort of trying to compare and contrast, you know, using a full data set on how long does a refugee have, or an asylum seeker have to wait in France, in Spain, in Germany, in the UK before their case is heard. How many succeed? How many are deported? And we managed to do a very good comparison job, which again, I think I didn't see anything similar in other, you know, comparable journalism that time.
Yeah, but I would say that this is a bit a challenge, as you said, because you could think that, okay, this is a global problem or a global issue. Everything we understand, we have probably the same editorial approach about the refugee issue. And you could say, okay, automatically, everything that we do all for could work 100% in the rest of our media. And it's not that way. I mean, it has to choose the topic. At the end, we have our audience, even if we are global, in many cases is very local. And the story from The Guardian, Le Monde, Spiegel are great, and they could work also, but you have to look for that theme or that aspect. It's not, I mean, for me, the great thing is that the link is done, and the work was great. And if you do it once, we can do it twice, and we could
from a technical point of view, there is one thing, is that you need a tool to exchange. And IGC has opened a Facebook group, which was very good because it was done the last minute and we hadn't prepared that before. But I have been involved in other cooperative projects like ICIJ, Panama Papers, Paradise Papers, and others. Swiss Leaks, etc. And we have a group a tool called iHub. It's like a private Facebook, but with all the functionalities of Facebook, not only like a group. And I think Slack can do many things, but we need to find next time. I think we have to find a very powerful tool to know what is each of us doing, what is being published, because in journalism, what the others are doing is very important. It's a very competitive business. So if El País is doing that, maybe we should do something, not because we compete with each other, but it helps also to convince the editors that, El País has done, look at them, why don't we do the same, etc. So it's very useful to have a radar to know what are the others doing.
Thank you, Serge. And we're already running out of time, so I would like to open it up for audience questions. Maybe we have time for up to 2 questions still. Anybody has a question? Yes, please. Wait for the microphone, please.
Did you collaborate at all in choosing the subjects of your reporting? So, Serge, you mentioned that you had a family that seemed like they were going to France, but then they ended up in Germany. And so, Eva, did you pick up on the same family, or did that not work out because of sources? Oh, did you collaborate choosing the subjects of your reporting?
Your family went to Germany. Did you pick up?
In that case, actually, it's maybe an example of how the communication did not work well, because afterwards we thought, why didn't he tell us that the family went to Germany, because it could have been a collaboration, but it just happened too late, I guess. But I think, Mark, you used our family to do a piece about 1 year, wir schaffen das, or no, 2 years or 3 years, wir schaffen das by Angela Merkel, 2 years, yeah.
But I mean, that worked really, really well, because it was very much part of the German political story at the time, so that was a great piece. But no, I think it was hard enough, just kind of, it's like herding sheep, trying to sort of find our own case studies, let the others find theirs, and just don't meddle into the middle of it, because it was already like 3-dimensional chess in several languages, and I didn't want to make it any harder than that.
Okay, another question? Yes, please, there. One sec.
You've been talking about the effects of your reporting on the individual families, and also about how you collaborated with other media. But can you say also something about the effects on the political effects, and maybe on the public opinion in your countries?
Certainly, yeah. I think the whole point of this project was to change the narrative a bit, because Britain's becoming, like a lot of European countries, very skeptical of immigration, and it's forgotten that there's 2 sides to an immigration story. There's huge benefits as well as certain costs and responsibilities. Did we manage to change the mood? No, I don't think we did. The Guardian has a very loyal readership in the UK, but it's quite small. We have a huge international readership. Inside the UK, we have a few 100,000 people who read us and would already have been convinced of the need for compassion, justice, and welcoming. But did it persuade the rest of Britain and the Theresa May government? Well, I think you can tell for yourself that that's not the case.
But yeah, I would just add that I think this kind of project, in that sense, gives the opportunity to shape public debate, that you can look where, because of how, debate and social media times and internet times work at the moment, I would say it's very highly polarized and ideologized, especially when it comes to the refugee issue. We had the possibility with this project to look where maybe people are not looking so much at the moment, and try to not use stereotypes to portray people, not just as like really look maybe behind the status of the refugee. I mean, it's not like that every person, or I don't know, I made the experience with our protagonists at least, it's not the refugee status alone that defines a person, or some person doesn't want to be defined by it. And this is something that normally, especially when you're working at online medium like I'm working, where you have a very fast news cycle that gets forgotten a lot.
That's something that's something that could change, yeah, because news cycles are so fast that even when you are talking about issues like this in a personal way, describing people or personal problems of refugees, in 24 hours they are gone and you go to another thing. In that case, it's for more than 1 year, you are revisiting the same people, following what's happening in their lives. And if they get a job, if they don't get a job, if they get together or if they get divorced. And I guess that could make a difference because it's the story for more than 1 year with the same persons in this developing story. It's broken this cycle of 24 hours news cycle.
In France, of course, we had a presidential election during the project, and at the second turn, there was the candidate of the Front National, Mrs. Le Pen, was there, and she's a very anti-immigration immigration person. So I think we somehow, if there was something we should have done better, is to mix the political cover of the campaign and the project with the migrants, and to constantly remind, but when you have a presidential campaign, it's such a stream of news, and it's so stressful for the people who follow the candidates and the debates and the campaign itself and the results and then the government and then the parliament election and etc. that it's very hard to tell them, don't forget to tell the readers about our group of refugees in Vichy. They are, they tell part of the story. So, and then now you have in France a very new mood of, Macron is pushing a law on refugees and migration that is quite harsh. And we can't say that we have influenced it at all. I mean, we tried to push those stories and say, that's not true, and sometimes, but I don't think we managed to influence the political process.
We have to wrap it up now, but I'm sure there will be opportunities for questions over drinks and the rest of the evening. Thanks to the four of you for your contributions to this panel and during the day in your individual sessions. And please stay tuned for the closing statement by Jair.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mark Rice-Ocley, Serge Michel, Eva Thöne, Carlos de Vega, and of course Eric Karstens and Cristina Romero. There are a few other people and institutions that I would like to thank. We have a few partners: Docking Station, the Dutch Foundation for Literature, European Journalism Center, who really helped making all this possible. And also we got money and funding from Lira Auteursfonds, Reprorecht, Pakhuis de Zwijger, Stichting Democratie en Media. They all helped making this possible. Picto Right, de Universiteit van Amsterdam, Media Studies, Stimuleringsfonds voor de Journalistiek, and the Embassy of Norway, Sweden and Germany. Last but not least, the director of the Initiative for Narrative Journalism in the Netherlands, Paulien Bakker. And also someone who I've been told worked like crazy to make today possible, Inge Oosterhof. I think hidden somewhere in the back, right over there. I would like to invite all the speakers of today, including the people from Docking Station and at Letterenfonds, to come up on stage to take a picture. For everyone else, I would like to invite you to go outside for drinks. Thank you all so much for coming to today. I hope you come back inspired and with fresh energy for your new stories. Thank you.